So we'll go ahead and move on to our free agency segment here, where we have a list of players that we think the Seahawks either need to target or are free agents for the Hawks and we think should be released. So we're going to start here with players to retain. Charles had Quandre Diggs, DJ Reed, Rashad Penny, and Ryan Neal. You want to give us a little bit of background on the list?
So we look over here at the list. Diggs, obvious, that's already been signed. DJ Reed, I think, makes a lot of sense simply because he's since it's always funny with DJ Reed because he was a guy that was claimed off of waivers from the 49ers, a guy that's San Francisco's like, hey, we don't have a roster spot for you. We're going to let you go. And he's performed great. He's not a guy that's a typical Pete Carroll cornerback. He's a 5'9" guy, but he's really played a starting cornerback role, not a guy that you throw into the slot. He's performed well. I think he's earned, maybe similar to Diggs, a 3-year deal, right? Set him up because cornerback has been an issue for Seattle ever since Richard Sherman has left the team.
Yeah.
Quandre Diggs and DJ Reed, I think that makes sense. You want to keep the secondary intact. I think they've made some good plays. I would like to add another cornerback, but we'll look at that when we get to free agents to target.
Okay.
The last one, Rashad Penny, I think we both agreed on that.
We agreed on all three of those guys. Yeah. And I was actually kind of surprised to see Penny on your list because I know you had some reservations about how he might perform moving forward.
It just really depends on the deal that he's given. But I would like to see him back because with the uncertainty of a Chris Carson, because year in and year out, it's like my uncle jokes about it. And I used to get annoyed because I was like, oh, if he just stayed healthy, but they're like, hey, he does need to stay healthy. When will that happen? I can't, like, if I'm Pete Carroll, if I had my hair back and I chewed the gum really loudly and I had the Air Monarchs, I'm looking at my roster and I'm looking at my running back depth chart and I'm like, can I count on Chris for 17 games this year? I don't know.
Yeah.
Rashad, well, and that's the danger of this. Like, if we're going to be completely honest about it, that's the danger of this backfield right now because even Penny, despite his late season resurgence, he's never played a full season.
Yeah.
So, but what he showed, with a line that you'd like to improve this offseason is really good. And what you were hoping you would get when you drafted him as a first rounder out of San Diego State. So again, I say give him a 2-year deal. I think 2 years is good. Maybe 2 years, like 10 to 12 million. I don't think that's bad, but I don't. Running back contracts are always kind of difficult because depending on if you're a pass catcher or you're valuable out. I think 2 years. It's a tentative 2 years.
Yeah,
is how I would look at it.
And with us thinking that they're in rebuild mode, I think it would kind of make sense to try to fill a new face into that role. Hopefully he's able to remain that consistency. Moving on, we did players to let walk. Chuck's list was Brandon Shell, Ethan
Postage.
Okay, I didn't want to butcher that. Kyle Fuller and Alex Collins. I had Gerald Everett, Alex Collins, and Al Woods, which actually he just committed to re-signing. So Al Woods was on my list only because he's an older guy, and I read that he might be a little bit more expensive than they thought.
We might get priced out of that.
Yeah. So I mean, it didn't sound like that happened though. 2 years for $9 million, you said?
Yep.
Yeah. So that was pretty good. So we were able to keep him at a good price. I don't think there's very much need for Gerald Everett anymore.
No, especially not with the Noah Fant acquisition, and that's Russell trade. Russell trade, and then especially now with Will Dissly being brought back, I'm intrigued that you. So why Everett over Dissly?
I think, again, I'm just thinking it's like rebuild mode, and we're looking for younger guys that eventually will have the talent that you see in them. So, again, with Noah Fant, Dissly being behind him, and they're different tight ends in their styles. So I just thought it would be a better fit.
Yeah, and it's not like you would sign him anyway on top of the Dissly deal, because if you're talking about getting younger, Seattle still has I'm gonna forget his name, the younger tight end out of Stanford. I'm forgetting his name, and it's terrible that I'm forgetting his name, but yeah, you want to stay younger and you probably want to keep that money off the books. It makes sense. But yeah, Postage, and Kyle Fuller at center. Neither of those guys have played to the level that you would have liked with Russell Wilson. And now, again, depending on how you approach this offseason, if you want to sit and rebuild, sure, sign Posich again. Let him be a placeholder. But if you're going to get a quick fix and you're going to want to protect that quarterback that you bring in to be a quick fix, I would want to upgrade at the center position. And there are some veteran spots that you could certainly do that at. But also, again, it depends on whatever plan you're going with. So, yeah, Brandon Shell actually has drawn interest from the Broncos with his former teammate Russell Wilson. So he might just leave on his own anyway. So, yeah, those were guys that I thought, hey, even before this trade happened, like a Brandon, those guys were already on my list. Alex Collins is a guy who's had, I think, 2 or 3 different stints with Seattle.
Yeah.
And he's getting up there in age. I would not mess with it. Your backfield's already going to be crowded anyway. Leave it alone. Best of luck to Alex Collins, but I think that the ship has sailed. So jump over to targets and a position that I would not think that we would have had to target in quarterback. Bel, I want you to I think the elephant in the room in terms of this is Deshaun Watson. And I want to preface this by saying that having 24 people accuse you of something at all already does not stack any good odds against you. Having 24 different masseuses on its own is a little bit weird. So that's my stance on it. I would not like to see Deshaun Watson in a Seahawks uniform. But also, I have seen that Seattle is not in the top 3 teams that are pursuing him. So do I think it's likely? No, and I'll just leave it alone. But in this world where, he gets cleared and somehow that's just all this incredibly wild thing where he was set up, sure, maybe, because also I know that Houston wants a big package for him.
They do, yeah.
So it's like, are you just going to take
picks,
the load that you got from Denver and then move it over to Houston? In an ideal world where all of that drama isn't happening, sure, let's go after Deshaun Watson if you're going to quick fix it, right? Let's do it. You're already not good with first-round picks anyway. Go ahead. But also I know that I can't just say, hey, we're going to ignore that stuff. So that's my personal stance on it.
Yeah. So based off of just him being young and then his talent and the talent that he's been able to show when he has played, that's why I thought that a Deshaun Watson trade would kind of make sense. Again, I'm not ignoring all of the personal stuff that's going on with him either, and we'll get into that again because that was league news that he avoided the criminal charges. But I just thought that, again, rebuilding, he's 26 years old. He has shown promise, and I thought maybe it would be a good fit. Not saying, again, just kind of letting go of all of the personal stuff that he's going through right now. I also had Teddy Bridgewater and Marcus Mariota on my list. Mariota, again, because he's a young quarterback with good mobility that didn't see much time on the field behind Derek Carr. And Teddy Bridgewater for me because he played 14 games with the Broncos and still ranks among the most accurate QBs in the league with a 66.9 completion percentage, and still also kind of on the younger side at 29, if you could say that's young.
And not to rain on the Bridgewater parade, but he does intend to sign a 1-year deal with Miami.
Oh, wow.
So there takes Bridgewater away. But looking at your list here, I mean, all of these guys, I think the key thing is that they're dual threat guys. And because if you're looking at what was said about Russell and wanting to keep that formula in place, that it does include a little bit of mobility, right? You're not looking at like a Peyton Manning set in the quarter stand. That's why when the news in that offseason, when we signed Matt Flynn, when the news about Peyton Manning potentially being linked to Seattle was a thing, I didn't believe it for 1 second. Because the offensive line is the first thing. Like Brady, people are like, oh, when Russell got traded, bring Brady to Seattle. Tom Brady would never come here. You need a great offensive line for Tom Brady. Tom Brady would die in Seattle.
Tom Brady also doesn't want to join a team that's rebuilding. No. In what season is he coming into now?
21st? 22nd? It's older than me. So, but yeah, at least with my list, it was Cam Newton. I would buy a Cam Newton Seahawks jersey. I'd say that right now. Marcus Mariota, I agree with you on that. Tyrod Taylor is a guy who's, I mean, been a consistent veteran. He's seen some really unlucky breaks, like with the Chargers to give Justin Herbert his start. There was that news about the team trainer puncturing his lung.
Yeah.
That's some bad luck, man. So I give Tyrod Taylor a shot, and then just to feed into Cougars fans' hopes a little bit, and I'll do this one favor. Go ahead, get Gardner Minshew. Screw it. Go and get him. I mean, come on. He hasn't, in all of the seasons he's played in the NFL, he's had a good touchdown to interception ratio. With that's how I feel with this Russell Wilson trade. Screw it. Go ahead. Go and get him.
Yeah.
So that's how I look at a quarterback. But we're moving a little bit. We got a lot of Seahawks stuff to get through here. So we'll go over to offensive line. Tackle and center are positions that I've looked at throughout the season, right? So I would look at, well, in the center, we both looked at Ryan Jensen, and this was before Brady decided he was going to come back. So it's more than likely that Jensen will be heading back to the Buccaneers. So I guess we can ignore that. Matt Paradis is a guy who is he might go back to Denver. He was a Bronco at first. He played time with the Panthers. But he's a veteran. I haven't seen anything about him. There's been a flurry of news about signings while we've been doing this. I have not seen Jensen's name, so
I thought I saw an article last night that said that Jensen.
Paradis.
Okay,
sorry,
because Jensen definitely is probably going to resign with the Bucs.
I haven't seen Paradis, but that's what I'm talking about. If you're quick fixing it and you bring one of those guys in, I would want a veteran center who is going to be good. And that's the thing. We go over to offensive tackle now. Dwayne Brown, is he going to want to be here in a rebuild? Probably not. He's getting up there in age, and his main guy, Russell Wilson, is gone. That was a big thing when we traded for him from Houston. Yeah. I'm here to protect Russell Wilson because since Russell Okung, and I didn't even like Russell Okung. He got a lot of false start penalties and holding penalties, and he had his penalty issues. Since Russell Okung, we hadn't had a consistent left tackle. George Fant had been thrown in there, into the fire, a guy who played basketball, and they were making him an offensive lineman. You had just been looking at a bunch of revolving door guys. You bring in Dwayne Brown to be the guy to protect the quarterback's blind side, and now the guy he was protecting is gone. Mm-hmm. Does he want to be back here? I'm going to say no if you're going to be rebuilding. But if you bring someone in that is a starter, he might come back. But also with the reports that Brendan Shell is going to may go to the Broncos, you're looking at right tackles maybe. I think the biggest piece is the one that we agreed on in Teron Armstead. He's a 30-year-old from the Saints. The Saints are effectively in cap hell where they need to rework a bunch of deals. He might be a cap casualty. And again, I like the quick fix idea, so I'm going to run with that. Teron Armstead, bolster that offensive line. Say you've got Teron Armstead, Gabe Jackson, who you acquired last offseason. In an ideal world, get Matt Paradis. You've got Damian Lewis, who's a good young guard, and then you got to sign a right tackle. That's 4 out of 5 starters that are good.
Yeah.
And that's better than 3 of 5, So tackle I think tackle and center are 2 positions I'd look at. But then also I had heard that Seattle was looking to add another receiver. Now, you and I have a little bit of a different acquired taste here. I was looking at guys who would be maybe complementary to a DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. I know that there were rumors about Tyler Lockett being traded, but that would mean a big cap hit for Seattle, so that's why I don't think that's realistic. And DK Metcalf, we're going to hope that he's going to be under contract, right? Keelan Cole, Dante Pettis is a local product who's played well with the Giants last season. Deshaun Hamilton is a Bronco who is still relatively young, but has not been able to stay in the field due to injury. I think that's like Pete Carroll guy. They're like, give him a chance, right? Mike Thomas is also a Bronco who has played well in his time. Not Michael Thomas from the Saints, but Mike Thomas from the Broncos, but has been productive. Bell went for some guys who I think might fetch some cash this offseason, but Seattle has that cash. So do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, so I thought the same thing, but I figured that, why not add someone of kind of a star caliber to the Metcalf and Lockett duo? So I did Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who produced for the Packers, and he always got those long balls from Aaron Rodgers and was effective in getting those long balls from Aaron Rodgers. So second on my list was Allen Robinson. I'm kind of surprised that no one has snagged him up yet, and he's still, to my knowledge, a free agent, but he was able to produce with the lack of a QB talent, I would say, in Chicago. So,
well, even back when he was a Jaguar, he had Blake Bortles, which isn't doing him. He's never really played with a marquee guy. And if we were doing this and Russell Wilson had not been traded, I say yes.
Yeah.
Go and get Allen Robinson. Bolster that wide receiver core. Again, it all depends. I think it's like I need a domino to fall to really say what plan we're going into. But also Schneider or Carroll have not said, oh, we're looking to compete next year, right?
Yeah.
They haven't said that. So I don't know. But I think
which all reads rebuild.
in an ideal world, I like the Robinson idea.
Yeah.
I love it. Even Scantling and
I had Juju as my last one on the list. Only because I think that Juju really came out hot in the first 2 seasons that he had in the league, and I feel like it's still in him. I think it can come back. And
he's got talent.
Yeah.
And he's only like 25. But I saw a stat last night, actually. It was kind of funny since I saw that you put that in there. In 30 games with Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster had 11 100-yard games. Through 33 without him, he has 1.
That's weird.
That could also be a byproduct, though, of playing with a Ben Roethlisberger that's at the end of his career.
Yes.
So, that makes sense. We get to edge/pass rush over here. This is an interesting situation because there's a lot of marquee guys, a couple that we have to take off of the list here.
Yeah. As
we look at our little graphic here, Devondre Campbell has signed with the Packers. He's re-upped his deal. Hassan Reddick, who I had on my list, has signed with the Eagles. But there's some interesting names. I think the most important one is Chandler Jones. Now, Jones said that free agency is not about the money to him. He's looking for a team that maximizes his talents. Jones has typically played in the 3-4 defense. Now, with Clint Hurt coming in, I know he's talked about that a little bit. Playing with fire. I was always a 4-3 guy. Like even in Madden, I like my cover linebackers. But again, with this, you're kind of looking at a new slate here without Russell Wilson. But go ahead. Sure, go ahead. I was looking at Jadeveon Clowney, maybe a Solomon Thomas. Solomon Thomas is a guy that got drafted high by the 49ers. Didn't necessarily work out there. Had a decent year with the Raiders last year. Standard Pete Carroll reclamation project. Sure, go ahead, throw him in there. Bell, again, looking at the maybe more expensive side of things. But also, again, you've got that money. So I'd like you to explore that a little bit.
Yeah. So, of course, Von Miller, who we don't know if he's committing to the Rams. And he actually, funny enough, teased a return to Denver, I think 2 days before the Russell trade was announced. So who knows? We might see him in a Denver Broncos uniform again. But clearly he's a scary guy. And I think he would just maximize on any team. So Von Miller, definitely. Chandler Jones, because like you said, Chandler Jones wants to be on a team where he can be Chandler Jones and he wants to just maximize his talent. And if his interest is not the money, then we could possibly add a guy that's pretty good for a pretty affordable price. So definitely on my list. And then, like you said, Devondre Campbell was on my list, but he has committed to the Packers, which the Packer fan in me is very excited about. He quickly became one of my favorite players. So unfortunately, he can't be on the list anymore, but I added this morning Zadarius Smith.
Yes. Okay. I was going to say, I don't know if you saw that he was likely to be released. Give him he's another linebacker / edge guy that if you're going to run 3-4, hey, why not? Right? Go ahead. Put him in there.
Yeah.
You're going to need, pressure. Quarterback pressure has been a big talk on the defensive side of the ball with the Seahawks for the past few years now, with being near the bottom of the league in sacks and not having a guy that is the sack leader, right? And also to go back to it, Chandler Jones is a guy that in several, where do key free agents max up articles, I've seen Jones linked to Seattle.
Really?
That would be a cool splash.
Yeah.
But that if you sign Chandler Jones, what does that signal to me? Quick fix. I need to figure this out. It's going to eat me up because then I can go forward with my offseason and figure these things out. So we look at the pass rush side of things, and now switch over to cornerback, which we kind of talked about with the DJ Reed thing. Some similar things here, but also some different. Both Bell and I agreed on a Kevin King, a guy who was a Husky product. Rasul Douglas, not a bad idea. Dante Jackson, was he spending time? I know he played with the Panthers for a bit. Isaiah Oliver, I think he had a really good season with the Falcons. I think he went to school in Colorado. This is where I looked on the more expensive side of things with Stephon Gilmore, a guy who's won a Defensive Player of the Year and one that Seattle was potentially linked to trading for last season. Kyle Fuller was a guy that also was linked to. He was involved in some of those mock trades for Russell Wilson with the Bears. I think he actually signed with the Broncos last season.
No,
the Broncos keep showing up.
I
This is
know.
terrible. J.C. Jackson actually just signed with the Chargers, so I can take him off of my list. And Justin Coleman was a guy who Seattle signed as a reclamation project from the Patriots a few years ago and had a great year, and then went and signed a big deal with Detroit. He's a free agent again. He's had some good years. Bring in a slot guy. I don't see why not. Do you want to look at any of those cornerbacks in particular and expand on any of that?
I mean, I don't see Douglas going anywhere, if I'm being honest. He had a really good season. He had, I believe, a career high 5 interceptions this season. He did really well with the lack of Jair Alexander there. So Kevin King was even hurt for part of the season. And like I said, he filled in greatly. So while he does not have a deal yet, I don't see him leaving the Packers. But Kevin King, I feel like, is a young guy that still has a lot to grow. He's talented, but he can still grow and would fit perfectly with that rebuild, just like Dante Jackson and Isaiah Oliver. So that's the reason those guys were on my list.
Yeah, and you look at King, he's a guy that fits right into the Pete Carroll cornerback mold. I mean, tall, lanky. Pete Carroll. Pick up the phone, Pete.
Get Kevin King back to Seattle.
I just want to talk, Pete. I just need to talk. But yes, I just wanted to scoot that forward because we had a pretty hefty Seahawks section. So we'll jump into league news. The Packers reportedly finalized a deal with Aaron Rodgers. The initial announcement was a deal of 4 years, $200 million. Rodgers later tweeted, "Hey, I'm coming back, but that deal isn't real.
Yeah.
That's not true." And we still don't know what that deal would be. So
No.
Bell is a little bit concerned about that because we have no idea what that deal is.
Yes, but also it gives me hope for the guys that they might re-sign, because I was getting so many text messages over the week saying that Aaron had taken all of the Packers' money. So now what were they going to do with the free agents? So it just kind of gives me hope that they're working out a deal to keep Rod for those 4 years, but still keep some of the main pieces that they need. So looking forward to seeing what that looks like.
So the list of players who received the franchise tag, which was the deadline on the 8th, include left tackle Orlando Brown with KC, tight end David Njoku with the Browns, Jesse Bates Jr., free safety with the Bengals, tight end Mike Gesicki with the Dolphins, tight end Dalton Schultz with the Cowboys, left tackle Cam Robinson with the Jaguars, wide receiver Devontae Adams with the Packers, and wide receiver Chris Godwin with the Buccaneers. Both of those last two guys reportedly do not want to play on that tag. On the 11th, famous broadcaster Joe Buck announced that he will join the Monday Night Football crew with longtime partner Troy Aikman. Both of those two will join the ESPN broadcast after spending a long time with Fox. It was also reported that Aikman never got a counteroffer from Fox after it was announced that ESPN was going to make him the Monday Night Football guy. Also, as Benjamin Bell mentioned, Deshaun Watson was cleared of criminal charges. Watson will not face charges from the sexual assault and misconduct cases, but will still face civil lawsuits. So he's not out of the woods. And then on the 13th of March, Tom Brady unretired, as I had thought he would when we had to break that news. The legendary quarterback announced on Twitter that he will return to the Buccaneers, which I think is interesting, simply because there were reports that came out that he was unhappy with the way Buccaneers did things, and Bruce Arians had some vulgar words about it. So I don't know how that whole situation works. It's kind of like you're people watching and you're like, hey, what are they doing over there? I don't know. But he's back, so that's just kind of like we got to deal with that now.
I felt like he just got nostalgic and was like, I need to come back.
It's always funny on Twitter because people are like, I guess he met with Ronaldo over the weekend, and there were things that LeBron dropped 52 games in 2 games this past week, and Brady said, "Oh, I'm going to come back." And then there was also things that Tom Brady had enough of his kids over 2 months and decided that he was going to come back. I don't know. All I know is I've got to deal with him again. So, with that being said, we've got a lot going on here still. We're pushing it.